All right, all right. Welcome everybody. It's not there yet. But don't worry. Blah blah blah. I don't care. Just go. Twitter's out. All right, that's fine. Welcome everybody to Radical Books and Politics. Hey, we have 3 viewers. Welcome, welcome. Kathy Powers back on. Welcome, comrade. Today we have another important show regarding COVID, and this is going to be a weekly thing because obviously this is not going to end. So last week we talked about CPS, and today we're going to talk about the disaster that is happening in higher education. So we have people from California, especially, and here from Chicago. But I would say what's happening here in Chicago is really no different than what's happening at other institutions. And so I'm going to go in order. We have Alan. I don't want to ruin your last name. Alan is a comrade, an adjunct from different colleges. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Alan.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, so I'm coming to you from both a public and private point of view, how schools have reopened, where I'm in person, where I'm not in person, and I'm just living that best adjunct life, teaching at 5 different schools this semester.
Lord, I have a lot to say about adjuncts and how they're treated. Peter from Oakland, do you want to unmute and introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. Peter Brown, he, him. I'm retired now, but I was an adjunct for 8.5 years, and then finally made full time just in time to retire at Laney Community College in Oakland, California. Laney is part of a 4-college district called the Peralta Community College District. I'll talk more about it. It's an extremely stressed district with a lot of poverty, especially at Laney College. I was also a member of the executive council of the Peralta Federation of Teachers, AFT 1603, and I was the career and technical education rep for all 4 campuses.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Peter. Welcome.
I taught machine technology, by the way. Most people know it as machine shop.
Nice. Caitlin.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Brady. I am a staff organizer for the Cook County College Teachers Union, and I'm also a student, formerly at Truman College, and right now we're full-time in person at UIC.
Full-time? Damn. Lauren, welcome. Lauren Taylor from awokenet.com.
Hi, my name's Lauren Taylor. I have a website about social justice organizations called awokenet.com, but I'm here as part of the People's COVID Response Network. And I guess I'm not connected with education, but I guess my reason for being here is we are certainly interested in getting a very broad-based united coalition that is going to come up with a collective response for all of the misadventures.
Here, brother.
And Kathy Powers, who you just mentioned, is on the chat. So I'm just here as a mouthpiece, and I'm glad she's here because I'm hoping she's going to keep me on track and give me whatever is missing from whatever I tell you.
And she will. I've invited her to come on, but she's a little camera shy, I think. But no, Lauren, I think that's beautiful because what's affecting the community college and higher education obviously impacts communities. And so I am also, I'm the chapter chair at Harold Washington College and the district building. I represent full-time faculty, full-time professionals, part-time professionals, and security. And I'm also on the reopening bargaining team, and I'm also on the faculty contract team. So this fight with the city of Chicago is not just happening at CPS, it's also happening in the city colleges. And I mean, I think you're right. I'm glad that community members, like the people who are in this network, are paying attention, because to me, this is all interconnected, and we can speak more about who's to blame and who's in charge and who's making these poor decisions. But I agree, Lauren, we're going to have to discuss that question of national coalition, city, state, national. So why don't we talk about the conditions that you're facing? Who wants to start first? We can go in order, or I can call on you. What are you seeing in terms of reopening plans that don't make sense to you, that you think perhaps the city needs to step up, or the university or the institution needs to do better?
I can jump in, Jesus. I can tell you the how opinionated can I get? I mean,
Brother, we curse on this channel. Go ahead, say what you got to say. Say it.
the private universities, they don't give a fuck. They just want the money. This one that I'm at in particular, I'll leave it anonymous, but this private university that I'm teaching at wanted the freshmen and sophomores to have the traditional experience. So they made their sophomores and freshmen come on campus. They've never been gone through the whole COVID time, through the whole 18, what are we at? 18, 20 months now? Something like that.
Over 18 months.
I teach speech, not math. Sorry. But yeah, no, they've never left campus. They were, 25, 26 students smashed in a small classroom that probably should be about 15 to 18 people. It's really kind of ridiculous.
And how have the COVID rates been at that institution, or even others? Do they report those out?
Yes, they do. Very, very high. Last fall, right before Thanksgiving, I had a lot of athletes in my class, and all the teams got exposed to COVID because they were still playing also, and I lost the whole football team.
Jesus.
I think I lost. I in one of my sections, I lost like 5 students because of that.
Wow, that's outrageous. I mean, oh my gosh, that is just unconscionable. For us at the city colleges at Harold Washington, not the whole city colleges, this semester there have been 5 reported COVID cases. But I was talking to Howard Ehrman, who used to work for Harold Washington at the Chicago Department of Public Health. And, I agree. I think those numbers are underreported. You can double, triple them, right? And that's not even counting people who may be asymptomatic. So I thank you for sharing that, Alan. Caitlin, how about you? What are things like, maybe you can speak to Truman and also UIC, or is that where you're going, UIC?
Yeah, I'm at UIC. I'll be honest, it's been pretty obscene. We were just all brought on campus. And the classrooms are packed. One of my classes, my data and programming class, there are over 30 students in the room, and we're all in rows and tables. So the tables stretch straight back, and there's probably, there's 4 seats at each table, and like every single one is taken. I don't even have space for my bags. And there's no contact tracing happening at all. When we first went on campus, we were asked to fill our names out on these tables, on these like photos of the tables. So that way, if someone was positive, they would look at the sheet and they would notify the people who sat immediately around them, even though the classroom is so tiny that they should be notifying everyone, right? What? I haven't seen a single notification come out about a COVID positive. We had one of my professors tell us that, someone tested positive in the class earlier in a week at the beginning of the year. She hasn't said anything since. So either UIC is a unicorn and there have been no COVID cases whatsoever, and, we should all go hide there because it's the safest place on earth. Or, they're just not telling us anything. And, I tend to believe it's the latter.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Well, because I'm on the reopening, not the reopening committee. I'm on the bargaining team with the city, with other chapter chairs from every college. But I was made aware recently that at Truman College, one of the professors, Truman, it may have been Daly, one of the city colleges, the professor was made aware, it was Daly. The professor was made aware that there was a COVID case, and the professor was told they could not inform the class. And I was like, what? Let me tell you, audience, that does not violate any FERPA or HIPAA, as long as you don't say who the student was. And I had a similar struggle because I was notifying parents of a COVID case in my kid's school because my son's class was quarantined the first day. And after the first day, they found out on Monday the kid came sick. On Tuesday, administration was notified, and on Wednesday, the kids were quarantined. But I was told you can't mention the classroom. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. First of all, I didn't say who the student was. I just mentioned the teacher's name, right? And partly to ease people because I posted it and they were freaking out. But they seem to be under this delusion, both at the city colleges and look, it sounds like other institutions, that they can't give basic information. I think informing your students is a responsible thing to do. You don't have to name names. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to demonize people. And to me, this is just ridiculous. Lauren, how about you? I know you're not affiliated with any community college or higher ed system, but what do you think is the responsibility of universities and colleges to report these kinds of cases to the college community and students?
Well, my initial reaction to all this was really more in the form of a question which Caitlin basically answered. I guess speaking for People's Response Network, contact tracing or a robust contact tracing programs is pretty much essential, right?
Oh yeah.
Especially if you're dealing with different communities where the vaccination rate, may vary, right? The idea of really being effective with the contact tracing is probably, at the foundation, okay? And I mean, it seems like unfortunately this is not happening, right?
No, and it's not happening anywhere. I could speak for the city colleges. And at one point it was 4 administrators last year at the district, and then it became 1 director at the district. And now apparently we have 1 administrator in charge who usually is a head of security, maybe a dean of instruction. But think about this. This is 1 individual contact tracing all the students that are going to school, all the employees, right? And we were discussing last week, what is effective contact tracing? Is it effective just to make phone calls? I didn't pick up the phone when the contact tracer contacted me via CPS. In fact, I I missed a call. And when I called back, nobody answered. I was waiting for over an hour, right? And we've questioned too at the city colleges. We've had cases where somebody was very near a sick person and that individual was in contact they weren't contacted, right? So I do think that we need to
Well,
go
if
above
I can,
and
if
beyond.
I can
Go
just drop,
ahead.
you could say, if I could just drop a kind of a shameless plug in here, this is one reason why uh, I'm engaged with the People's Response Network. Is we do really have a kind of a coalition of people with different levels of experience,
Mhm.
dealing with the COVID or the pandemic response, on the part of city, school boards, etc. I know that we have some people who have had experience in contact tracing, right, and can
Mhm.
really put some meat on the bones. Hope Kathy, if you uh, remember who it is and can reach out to them while we're on the program. Maybe we can even get some feedback there. But yeah, which is certainly why we would want participation of for really everyone here who's on this call.
Right. And I mean, I hadn't thought about this until one of the guests raised it last Sunday, is that the community could do the contact tracing. It's not that difficult. We could take the questionnaires, we could go to people's homes. Like I know the parents and the students at the school where my kids go, I would feel comfortable to obviously socially distance. I would feel comfortable talking to them and saying, hey, who would you're in contact with? Because what they do in the city, part of it's not bad. They look at the cameras to see the proximity, but this whole notion, I mean, the cameras can also be subjective. And I just think that in order to do a thorough contact, you ask the person who were you in contact with, right? Were you talking to the person? I don't even know if I agree with this 15-minute rule. I just think if you've been in contact with someone, they should be notified. In fact, does anybody know the science behind 15 minutes? Does that even hold water? Peter, do you know this? Is this a case? I wanted a health professional on, but
I,
you know, I
I,
don't
I,
know.
I only know what I've heard like from the CDC, which is that your chances of getting infected, getting enough germ load to be infected are very low unless you're in contact with somebody for a number of minutes, and 15 minutes is kind of a threshold, sort of. But I think, all of this, everything I'm hearing and the experience I'm having, because I'm at Laney College as a volunteer. I do maintenance and in the department, and I assist with teaching. Uh, it is that it's also fragmented, and it's also dependent on administrators who are there for their careers, and
Mm,
so there's no, everything everybody has said so far is about lack of coordination and lack of thoroughness and fragmentation. And you can't deal with something like this unless you have a completely unified program that is thoroughly coordinated and has loads of people working in it. And there are tons of people in this country who need jobs and need work, and
mhm.
aren't making any money or aren't making enough money, who could be doing that. You're absolutely right. Students could be taught to do contact tracing in their classes.
Yep.
Uh, and community members want to help, and they're not being allowed to help. At Laney and in the Peralta colleges, the response again has been very uneven and fragmented. It's not like there's some one evildoer, but we've had two interim chancellors in a row after a series of really bad chancellors who were totally corrupt. And the top administration of the district is very much in the pocket of businesses locally and internationally, because Oakland is a hub for global investment. So we have, here you've got these colleges that have some of the brokest young people, brokest student bodies in the whole state, and they occupy some of the most valuable land in the city of Oakland and Berkeley, and the developers are just scheming to get at it. The Oakland
Mhm.
A's baseball team tried to build a stadium right on our college campus. That was interesting. But
Yeah.
when I talk about being fragmented, how departments deal with being open is really up to the departments. And the what I've heard from instructors this semester is that the district has just said everything's open. They're
Mhm.
having live classes, and like Caitlin was talking about, they're packing the students into these small lecture classrooms. Uh, and there's no social distancing. There's no coordinated program for checking anything, temperatures when people walk in.
That's right.
Um, that can all be done easily if the resources are devoted to it. They have they
That
have
is a key point, Peter.
Yeah,
The resources, right?
yeah,
Because this is the thing. We got millions of dollars just for Harold Washington. We got COVID funds. The public school system got COVID funds. And we could talk about. I talked about this last time, but in our union contract, there's actually language that if new income comes in, we open up bargaining. So we tried, and I was on the meetings with the attorneys, and they would play dumb. They didn't know the rules. At one point, the attorney said there was no money. Baloney. The money had come in December, right? And then they finally wanted to talk, and it was just a shit show, right? So then what happened is that because they wouldn't bargain, we filed a grievance. Was denied. We filed an unfair labor practice and won. And the arbitrator basically said, if they don't bargain over these funds, it's going to have to go in escrow until you do. It's okay. So then still, they wouldn't bargain. They wouldn't, and all they had to do was talk. We couldn't even tell them how to spend the money, right? So then what happened is that we filed a complaint with the state labor board. They were going to go to court in October, and whatever attorney they hired said, "Look, you're going to lose." And so now they sent us the language and how we're going to coordinate refunds for faculty members who buy computers and Wi-Fi. But even within the proposals they gave, there's some sneaky loopholes that I'm like, oh, I call BS on this and I call BS on that. They had a proposal like if we're supposed to establish a committee of equal body, like equal union, equal administration, but if there was a deadlock, the claim would be thrown out. And I'm like, no, if there's a debt, like, you appeal, like, what the crap, you know? But I just find that egregious that for us, the budget is much smaller than CPS, right? Because right now they've been sitting on like $4 billion. If you look at the total, not just $2 billion from this year. For us, it's been millions of dollars. Those millions of dollars could go a long way in our system to provide shields, to provide proper PPE, to go remote. You know, when we were first coming back into the building, for teachers who volunteer to come back, they were under the impression that class sizes were going to be smaller. So they thought they were going to teach 10 students per class. And then what happened? Governor Pritzker said it was all level 5, opened everything. There went all the reopening plans, right? So even though I do think there are bad characters or bad players, I blame the governor on down to the mayor, to the school boards. You know, they're not without their fault. And I don't care what fantasy world they're living in. I just saw on a parent group that a child died of COVID. I wanted to verify that. But the thing is, they don't give a shit, right? And that's a problem. We have to make them, we're going to have to fight for this. But Caitlin, you seem like you want to respond. I don't know if you want to speak to the union issue or what you think, what's happening. I'm sure UIC also got money, right? What happened to the funds? You know?
I mean, I was just cracking up at the thought, you know, at the fact that their lawyer had to lose an arbitrations to, you know, talk, and that they'd probably rather put the funds in escrow and just like sit there like this than talk to you. But yeah. UIC got the same funding as all the other public universities and schools. You know, they're, to their credit, I guess, there's masks in every room. Like, there's a box of masks for folks to take if they want. There's hand sanitizer everywhere. When I walked the halls at Truman the other day, I didn't see any of that. I didn't see any of it at all.
You mean the PPE?
The PPE, yeah. I didn't see any masks out. I didn't see any like big things of hand sanitizer. There were the ones that were up against the wall, but that one was empty. But I think City Colleges has always had a problem with keeping those buildings clean.
Well, and the other problem, I'm sorry, husband, you're making a lot of noise. If you could please stop. Thank you very much. Oh, he brought me sushi. Thank you, my love. It's lunchtime, apparently.
But what about sushi for the rest of us?
Yeah, I was like, can I get some sushi?
Come say hi to the comrades. That's okay. You can more. To my husband, Aaron.
Have a great day, guys.
So I think
without sushi.
Oh, brother, it helps me when I'm starting to get depressed over all this shit. Sushi helps. I'll tell you, this is true. Fish is helpful. But I've been like running on adrenaline and fucking anger, you know. So not gonna stop. It's really disheartening. You know, even at Harold Washington, they promised that they were going to put shields up for the wellness center, which is very highly used, right? And also the tutoring center. I don't think the shields ever went up. I was asking the former head of the wellness center, because he's now my counselor privately, who, by the way, quit his job because he didn't get a pay raise in over 5 years. Meanwhile, the district administrators were getting 10% pay raises, and we're talking big chunks of change, right? It's horrible. So he said, no, they never put the shields up. You know, at least at my college, they've said there's plenty of PPE. You just have to ask for it. And the struggle for us has really been having people wear the mask properly, right? I just had to tell my members again last Friday, you have to keep your mask on. This is a state mandate. You can't just take it off when your supervisor's not there. It's only like one person is doing this, but I'm like, you can't do that. You got to keep your damn mask on, you know, and wear it properly. People just kind of do this thing where I don't know why they think they're not breathing out of their nose, you know, but still proper PPE needs to be available, regular hand washing. You know, Peter, I was wondering if you could relate your experience at this class you were taking, because that really opened my eyes. Like, yeah, I think more needs to be, but talk about that class you're in. Sorry, my dog's being naughty.
So in machine technology, it's you can't teach it online purely, because you're teaching people to run very powerful precision machinery that's also deadly. And so they have to actually operate it and learn to set it up and analyze problems. And the department showed how easy it is to actually do COVID response well, because they took it on themselves. The new department chair and the faculty took it on themselves to set up an entire protocol where you don't walk in the door. Well, first of all, they cut their enrollment in a third. So everybody is spread out is more than 10 feet apart. So
Wow.
only a third of the machines in the lab are occupied at any one time, and every machine is sprayed down. Every machine that's been used is sprayed down after class. Every hand tool, because we use precision measuring tools, they're all wiped. To walk in the door, you have to have filled out a COVID survey within the last 10 hours. Your temperature gets scanned. You wash your hands when you walk in the door. You can't even come on campus without a mask on. The mask
Wow.
has to stay on through the entire class. Everybody in the lab has to wash their hands every 30 minutes. Because of all that, because people are conscious and because it's done in a coordinated way throughout the entire department, there are no COVID cases for the last year and a half.
Wow.
No COVID cases came out of that department for the last year and a half. A
I think
couple of
that
people got COVID, but they got it at their jobs or
mm,
elsewhere, and they documented that.
that's
So it can all
amazing.
be done, like you said, it just has to be done in a coordinated way, and it has to be given the resources. And like Greta Thunberg, the climate warrior, said, when COVID hit, they started making money out of nowhere.
That's right.
The government can find funds, of course they can,
That's
and
absolutely right.
the apple rots from the core. So the federal government has the tremendous responsibility to organize this, and of course it didn't. The whole thing is organized according to the needs of giant pharmaceuticals, the people who brought us, opioids. And even now, when the U.S. government is benefiting poor nations, they're doing it by buying doses of vaccine from these corporations at full price and then giving it away to the world if they actually do it. So,
No,
and
that's
they're leaving
unconscionable.
it all up to individual states, individual counties, individual school districts, individual administrators, and none of it has any real guidance.
I want to
That's
hit
a
on that
crime.
point because I think federal guidelines are crucial, and this whole notion of who's profiting, because I mean, I know we're in a different historical time period, but this didn't happen during the polio vaccine. In fact, one of the creators gave it away, right? People just lined up, and
Absolutely.
schools became vaccination centers. But Kathy's raising an interesting point before I get to the federal guidelines. She says the People's Response Network to COVID-19 has written an ordinance that addresses hiring tests. I'm assuming hiring people who test, vaccinators, and tracers from the community. It was buried by the mayor. Of course it was. Um, so let's talk about the lack of federal guidelines, because I think that's a problem. And one of the things that disgusted me was how before Biden was elected, people were saying, okay, we got to keep our kids remote. As soon as Biden was elected and he came up with his atrocious 100-day plan to bring students back, the American Federation of Teachers, the Illinois Federation of Teachers, other organizations said, oh, now we got to bring the kids back. When what, like a few weeks ago, you were saying we had to keep the kids remote. Nothing changed. The virus didn't suddenly disappear. And I am disgusted by that. I think if you're going to be a fighting union, you fight for our members no matter what. But let's talk about federal guidelines. What might that look like? Right? And do you think we can still fight to get the federal guidelines? Because without that, you'll have disasters like Florida, Texas, Mississippi, where these cases are just crazy, right? Kids are dying in the hospital, the ICUs are overrun. Alan, you say yes. Go ahead.
Going a little further, so I'm with you in Illinois. All the schools that I teach at are in Illinois, and based geographically where they are, even these state mandates that we have are being interpreted so differently and so just so drastically different. That's all I can say. So I was teaching a hybrid course for a college that's more rural. It's very, just to be blunt, it's very white town. It's very farmy. It's very Republican. And all of a sudden, because of the governor's mandate, nobody wanted to show up to the hybrid part of the classroom anymore because they didn't want to be vaccinated to be on campus. So now I'm 100% remote in that class because they just literally one person out of the 20 showed up to campus and was vaccinated.
Is that like that political? Why?
I think that's the mentality out there. Is that, but the more urban, all the Chicago schools and the more suburban schools that I teach at are pretty much handling it well. The mandate that we have in Illinois to either be vaccinated or test every week. But it's also, I think, your where you live and what your, I guess, beliefs are, if you want to call it that.
Right. Down south, though, they're having a serious problem with COVID cases. Mm-hmm. Caitlin, what is the thing? Well, what do you think about federal guidelines?
So I might have an unpopular opinion here.
No, let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of vaccine mandates. I don't think they work. I think from a public health perspective, I don't think punishment ever works, right? For things like public health, because then you end up with a situation that Alan was just talking about where they're not going to follow the mandate, so now they're not going to go to school. So now they're just going to like retract and go in. And I think that especially when you look at like the vaccine as it relates to race, like you can't dismiss the concerns of Black people in this country who are uncomfortable with getting vaccinated. Well, in my opinion, we should have shut down. If we had shut down, like now, if we could go back in time and we had just shut down, no exceptions, we wouldn't be in this mess now, right?
Oh, I agree 100%. I still think we should shut down.
Yeah, so I think the solution now is to take these funds and put them into a massive public health campaign, similar to what they did with polio and the Spanish flu. They had legitimate what's the word I want? Ambassadors going into communities around the country and doing public education, and it was coming from people they trusted. It's not like government workers swooping in. It's training the community to train the community, and those things work. But yeah, I don't think vaccine, first of all, it's not a mandate. You can test out of it. And second of all, if it were a real mandate, what are the consequences of violating it? And I just don't think punitive measures are ever
I wasn't
the way
really
to
thinking
go.
Punitive measures, Caitlin. I was just thinking like guidelines, like you have to be 6 feet apart, you have to test weekly, this kind of thing. But I agree. My new campaign is shut it down, because if we don't shut it down, this is just going to keep going. This is not going to disappear next year. I'm terrified to think that there is going to be another mutation, this is what viruses do. They want to spread, right? Another mutation where even the new vaccine isn't going to be effective. I've been waiting for the children's vaccine from 5 to 12 to come out, because that's why I'm not sending my kids into school, right? But it's legitimate, and as long as I think they're having this these look, the free market's running this, right? As long as the private corporations are running this, I don't see how we're going to get out of it. So Kathy has an interesting perspective. She says the CDC unmasked us, then reverts itself after the infection spread. I follow the World Health Organization as much as possible, but I'm not sure how much I can trust it given global capitalism. That is an outstanding point. And she says there are no government workers to educate. Public health is decimated. I can speak to that. Right. In Chicago, we used to have a very robust public health system during the time of Mayor Washington, and over the last 30 years, it's been gutted. And I tell people the recommendations that are coming from this department are hitting the sewer. They're not going no higher. They're terrible recommendations. Kathy, you remember the name of that one, Dr. Arwadi, whatever her name is? Jesus, Mary and Joseph. She was on a press conference with the mayor. By the way, the mayor sounded very intelligent. She talked about having centers that, in brown, Black communities, talked about how this was impacting poor people. Hasn't really done much to help them, but, she was talking the talk. But this doctor comes on and says, the infections have been few. What the fuck? Really? No, they have not been few. We're above 2% infection rate in the city of Chicago. I don't know what the woman is smoking, because that was just plain bullshit, you know? So, Lauren, what about you? What do you think could be, like, I think you maybe are agreeing more with Caitlin and how we can stop the virus, right? Is it gonna take community support, you know? Go ahead.
Well, how you said, as I said, my initial reaction to any of this is more to ask questions, actually,
Mm.
than make particular statements. For instance, you have Peter, who related his experience about what's going on in Oakland. And what I was struck by, I guess, if I got it right, Peter, nothing really specifically in place in terms of engagement with community.
Right. You got it.
Okay. Which leads to another question. Any of the places that the three of you are associated with, anything already in place to engage with the community, the institutions that you are, working with, or like, Caitlin, where you go to school, have you seen anything in
No, and
place
in
to
fact,
engage with community?
that is one of my goals, Lauren, for the city colleges, because it is a community college. It serves a community, and one is to activate the members. And I was just going through these are some things you can do to start a campaign, tweet your discontent at the governor, the mayor. We can do a petition, we can have educational forums, but we need to get the students and community involved, because our enrollments have actually, even though they think they're dropping, a lot of students are coming to the city colleges, a lot of reverse transfers from the university, because they can't afford to go to school there. And a lot of CPS students also come to the community college system, that we should be connecting to the community. And one thing I said is, however you can do this, we have to educate the students and the parents and the community about what's happening.
And just off the top of my head, and what I'm thinking is that probably you could say, as much as any community, okay, if you think of the community of community-based colleges, right? The students in particular are like living in multi-generational households, right?
Absolutely.
And so what's going on in these places is going to probably, I'm just kind of guessing, so to speak, but what's going on in these places is going to impact community probably even a lot more than a standard workplace, right? Because of the fact that so many of the people who are part of this community are living in multi-generational households, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I just think this idea of I go back to it again, the wide-based coalition that
No,
is coming up with a collective response.
I agree
That's kind
100%.
of the first step
Right.
that's actionable.
And that's why I joined the People's Response, and so did my son, who I'm very proud of. He's 11 years old, very woke, but he says, I'm sticking with this campaign until kids are safe. I hate to tell them this may be a very, very long struggle, but he's committed and has spoken at rallies, was in the front page of the Chicago Tribune, is speaking at an event for the organization, Lauren. And he's like, well, am I going to have to prepare a formal speech, or can I speak from the heart? I'm like, you do what you got to do, but I think preparing formal points might not be a bad idea. But what I'm getting at is that I agree. A broad-based coalition is key, but you're absolutely right. If we don't involve the community, if we don't involve the people that are directly affected, like our students, CPS students, we're not going to win this fight, especially when parents need to get involved. I know there's a parent strike that is a worldwide parent strike that we're organizing for October 1st. I don't know how many parents that are sending their kids to CPS we can get out there, but I know they're concerned. I don't think they're happy sending their kid to a school where there's been 5 quarantine classes. It can't be. Peter, go ahead.
So thanks. I want, before Caitlin has to leave, I see she's got to leave. I wanted to get back to something she said about people not trusting vaccination. The vaccination mandates are the heavy-handed approach of a government that has not done its job before this.
Right.
And just as she talked about the African American community, there's lots of rural and poor white folks don't trust the government at all. And my wife and I have problems with how vaccinations are done. The point is not the vaccines. I think this vaccine is good, but like they said in Jaws, we're going to need a bigger damn boat. This monster is too big for any of us to handle alone or just in our little group. So I really appreciate Lauren's point and your point, Jesus, about broadening this movement. Has to become a movement, not a fragmented bunch of small movements. And it has to understand that we've got to put the question of political power on the table for discussion in this country. We're all busy trying to get the
No, not to sorry to, but and it also kind of require, and I guess this is where what Caitlin says, comes into the mix too. If it's broad based, we kind of have to have a little bit of patience that there's going to be different levels of what is important or what we think is the most immediate or needed remedy, right?
I agree.
I'm particularly concerned with the possibility of the division, outside of whether or not, how do you say it? Good point, Caitlin, about the effectiveness of it. But in addition to this idea about whether or not mandates in themselves would be effective, I'm concerned about the idea of the division.
Well, that's really a good point, Warren, because we can be divided along cultural and religious and belief lines, but we can be united around basic needs. I don't care what somebody believes, they need health care, regardless of whether they can pay for it. I don't care what they think about vaccines. They need to be able to go to school and get educated. Right. Their family needs food. If we're going to fight this, everybody needs the resources to be able to isolate. And we need, the government could have 50 teams, probably 52 teams, including Puerto Rico, a team for every state. The team goes out and trains people throughout the state to be, contact tracing, and they set up centers for isolation and fever. And when somebody comes in with a fever, they get back to their family and they check the whole family. This can all be done, but we have to recognize, like the abolitionists did in 1854, that the government we have is not going to be capable of doing that. We're going to have to become the government. We're going to have to become the power. And so we have to start organizing on that basis. And that doesn't mean stopping what else we're doing. I don't want to invalidate, but networks like yours, Lauren, are so important. And the grouping you're in, all the groupings we're in have a part to play in bringing this together.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We have. Sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to give Caitlin trying to give a parting shot because I know she has to go. Caitlin, do you want to give a parting shot?
No, just thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
My pleasure.
I love talking. So,
You're welcome back anytime. We're going to be doing this next Sunday. It's going to be about unions and their responses to COVID and how we can have a coalition, a better coalition with them, right? Thank you, Caitlin. Alan, please go ahead.
Bye.
No, I not to beat a dead horse, but besides this year, the past 4 years, we've had a president who made it okay to be racist and okay to divide a country, and the people that find it okay not to get a vaccine because they just want to fuck the government up, those are the people that I'm worried about. It's not the unsure people or the people who can't get it because of medical reasons or other things like that. Those people we can help educate. It's the people who are dividing us is in my opinion what's causing this to drag on longer.
That's part of it. I agree. And I gotta admit, on a personal note, it took me a while to come to terms with this idea that people don't want to get vaccinated. And I've come to broaden my perspective. In fact, when I argue for my members, I argue that the people who are not vaccinated should have even better safety standards than those who are vaccinated. But I think. So Kathy says she's got a differing opinion. She says, I think the mandates have to be done. People are infecting each other. But, Peter, I think you hit it on the nail. Biden's not going to do shit. I'm sorry. He talks a good game. He's not going to do anything. I don't know. We're going to have to do this. And I proposed at a student, it wasn't a student, it was a public school meeting. I said, look, why can't we do our own contact tracing? Because quite frankly, the city doesn't give a shit about us. And they were like, huh. But I think you're right. I think this is going to involve the community. I mean, here's a point where we can involve community members. It's also a very united school because they fought the city for so long because the real estate corporations were trying to close the school down. So they're very united. They're very militant, right? And I think this is ideal to say, look, these are some things we can do outside of the incompetence of the city of Mayor Lightfoot and Dr. What's her name, Arwadi or whatever, who's in charge. But I agree. And the thing about how we get power back, that's crucial, right? And I think you mean power beyond the elections, though, because I think most of us are involved with right now. Our aldermen are starting to gear up for another election, and so we supported in the union very progressive socialist candidates like Byron Sexual Lopez. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. I was just rattling the names off the other day. Maria Haddon, Jeanette Taylor, all these alder persons that have been really warriors and stand with us, So, but what does that look like to get political? I know it's just a pie in the sky question, Peter, because we haven't done it. But what would it mean for us to take political power?
Well, Steve Bannon said that the way to take over the country is through the school districts. Of course, he wants to take over the country for the corporations.
Right.
But we can do the same thing. And what he means is we've got to use the electoral system we've got at every level we can, from the bottom to the top, because by taking over school boards, taking over city councils, taking over, I don't know how your cities are organized, taking over county boards of supervisors, taking state assembly and senate seats, et cetera, et cetera. The California Public Utilities Commission is utterly corrupt.
Yes.
They let PG&E, after PG&E was convicted of fraud and criminal malfeasance for the things that started all these fires, they allowed them to come back into business as is with no significant changes. So we have to start thinking about that, and we have to get our young people thinking about running for candidacy, running for these spots, and it has to be program based. Lauren and Alan have been very clear, as was Caitlin, about program. In other words, what is it we need? I don't care what you call the system. I don't care what name you call it. We need the things that people need. We need clean air. We need clean water. We need good education. We need all these things. We need healthcare that is healthcare, not a business. We need housing that is housing, not a business. We've got thousands of empty apartments in Oakland that are never going to be filled because they're not being built to be filled. They're being built as financial instruments. Well, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
And we don't have to stand for that. And when we start thinking about power, it doesn't mean we stop demonstrating. It doesn't mean we stop our networks. It means we use those networks in a different way, and we organize around the things that all of us need.
Yeah, together. I agree 100%. And that same thing that happens in Oakland happens in Chicago. And the Chicago Union of the Homeless has been key. Others too. Same thing. The private companies are buying these houses that are supposed to be for people who need them. Alan, I think you were going to say something. Go ahead, Alan.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing. And also, I would say education to the people that they are hiring. I have a cousin she's in CPS and she's in high school, and the first week they did not have assigned seating or anything like that, and they had a COVID case in her class, and they just picked random people because they sent random people home to quarantine because they didn't know who was around the student.
That's crazy, and so irresponsible.
if these contract tracers are hired, that's great, but are they doing it? Are they doing things correctly? Do they know how to do it? Where more education then comes in for these contact
Well, the
tracers.
problem is the contact tracers for NCPS, they currently have, I believe, 24 contact tracers for 6,000 schools. Stupid. I mean, you, even as a speech teacher who doesn't know math, sees that is fucked up, right? And they were going to hire 13 more. And that's why when I called the contract tracers for CPS, nobody picked up the phone. What if we had been infected? There was no mechanism for us to report if we were infected. But that's the thing. Even how the reporting numbers is so messed up. They only count the infections in the building, not if you're infecting people at home, not if you're infecting your best friends, But I do want to raise a point, Peter, because this is an important topic that has come up for Chicago and elected school board in the public school system and city colleges of Chicago. We've tried to put this bill forth. We've had a number of politicians support us, and it dies. I mean, I imagine that if we had an elected school board, things would be a lot better. They would understand academics. It would prioritize students and their well-being, not whatever new bullshit program they have in mind, right? For CPS, the same thing. They just hired the, oh my God, I'm going to talk about this dude again. The CEO they hired is Latino and he's from Chicago, but he's pro charter school, pro giving money to private schools, and has said his mission is to keep the schools open. How is that going to help students in the public school system? It's not. I don't give a shit if he's Latino or from Chicago. I don't care what color you are. If you're not fighting for the demands of the people and serving student needs, get the fuck out. They're already planning a protest against this guy, and I think he comes in office, or he's already in office now. But yeah, it's a mess, and that's the unfortunate thing. But I gotta give it. I'm deeply inspired by UTLA, the union in Los Angeles, because one thing that the president said is like, don't think you don't have power. You have your bodies. And that hit home with me. Like, you know what? You're right. It's not just me and my union. It's the students, it's the parents, it's people that are concerned, because it's not just young people, and that people see this and call bullshit. People are angry that so many classes are being quarantined in the public school system. You know what I'm saying? And I think those are the bodies that we need to unite. But yeah, at least that's what I'm hoping. Up here comes little number. Hey, say hi to the comrades.
Hello. Got you cookie.
Oh, thank you, dear.
Well, I really want to appreciate something that someone said a little bit earlier about people just taking it on themselves, organized groups of parents and stuff. And I sorry, I can't remember who it was, but this is what movements have done historically in many countries. The government's not responsive. Like, you have an unelected school board, set up a people's school board. The Zapatistas did it in Mexico. The city hall wouldn't respond. They set up a table in front of city hall and they started doing city business right there on the street.
Nice.
And then, when people come to you and you get things done and you respond, a basis to demand the money to do it. Of course, then you get attacked. First they laugh at you, then they attack you, and then you win.
Right. That's actually pretty brilliant. Also, in terms of educating. So Kathy says, conspiracy-wise, I think this is a way to shut down the public schools. What would that look like? The broke on purpose model comes to mind. We were using the same failing on purpose or broke on purpose in the city colleges, that they make these decisions, even from the business standpoint, are so counterintuitive. You wonder if they want the system to fail. There's a chapter chair. I won't say who he is, but he thinks that the value where the city colleges are at are so profitable that they want the colleges to fail so they can sell them. And I'm like, damn, that's dark. But, hey, maybe these real estate companies are no joke, right? They wield a lot of power in the city of Chicago, and maybe that's a case. Thank you. Love you too, Kathy. So we're closing down. Let's talk about I think we've talked about vision, getting people's needs met. I'm imagining well-funded schools that are not overcrowded, community college that actually serve the community, not overcrowded classes, right? And for you, Alan, and for adjuncts, living wages for teachers. My God, the city colleges of Chicago is they pay the adjuncts one of the lowest wages in the whole state, probably the whole country. It's ridiculous and unconscionable because they're serving our students, you know. But she says she bet Salgado. Salgado is our chancellor. Salgado's arranging it now. They're arranging the land deals with the. If it happens, I'll be like, "Oh, you're psychic," you know. So let's where can people reach you? And again, Ellen, thank you. This has been such a great conversation. I feel really energized. Lauren, let's do it, man. Let's get this broad coalition going. You know, our kids' lives are at stake. You know what I mean? Our students' lives are at stake. Our community members are at stake. We're at stake, right? So where can people find you on social media?
Well, People's Response Network. I guess the easiest and of course, since she's on the line here, she is our taking care of our Facebook page,
Oh,
and I
I
guess
know that.
basically, yeah, you just put the People's Response Network to COVID-19. That's the official name of the Facebook page, and Kathy is the one that's dealing with that. We have our regular meetings every week online on Zoom. The the normal weekly meetings, I think, are 5 o'clock Central Time. Okay, and to get the link for that one, it's
I got
basically
it. Got it.
people's the Gmail address is people's COVID-19 response. That's one word at gmail.com.
So
And
I
then
actually have
we'll
this.
send you a link. Oh, what is that? The link? Is that the link?
Yes, and I think this Wednesday we're
Kathy just
staying.
threw it in there. Or
I
someone
threw it
just
on
threw it
there.
in
I
there.
did. This week we're
Okay,
going to
great.
meet
That's it.
until
That's it. Every Wednesday.
right. Except that this time I think we're going to meet. We're going to cut off at 6:30 because there's another committee meeting afterwards with Byron Sichko Lopez. I forgot what the
And the
topic
week
is about.
after that, we're actually having a panel event that is, going to bring in some other groups. And I think that one is going to be at a special time because, 5 o'clock is
Right.
kind of early for a webinar or, a
Mm-hmm.
online panel
Well,
discussion. So I
hope
think
it's not
the
too early.
week after next, or date is, I think, October 6th. That'll be at like 6 o'clock, but that's going to be, like I say, more of a kind of a webinar panel discussion event kind of thing.
Right. I'll be pitching that again because I'm speaking at that, and so is Antonio. And so I'll be sure to make an announcement on the channel. Thank you so much. Yes, the meetings are amazing. We get a lot of work done, and so I invite anybody who's interested to come to the People's Response to COVID-19. So it's great. They've been very supportive of the Sapia Sikha group, which I'm also a member of. Just fantastic. All right,
Can
very
I
good, excellent.
can
Yeah,
I
Alan,
put in
go
a
ahead. I mean,
blurb for a couple of
Peter, go
meetings?
ahead. Yes,
Sure.
please.
So you can reach me through the League of Revolutionaries for a New America website. That's lrna.org. No periods, no spaces. And we got a couple of events coming up. In Oakland, our local organization, one of our committees is putting on a teach-in on October 6th. I believe you'll be able to see the flyer for that on the lrna.org website. And it's on housing, it's on COVID, and on policing. And so, because these are all completely interlocked together, we've got 15% of our students at Laney are homeless. And also on October 23rd, we're having a discussion among change makers, revolutionaries, about the fascism that's being developed and what is it. And we're really trying to wrap our brains around it. So we're inviting people to an ongoing study and discussion, a real conversation that you're all welcome to. And that's October 23rd. The flyer for that is going up. There won't be any speakers or panel. It's going to be everybody chiming in. So we'll have some readings and some questions up, and that's October 23rd.
And in
Because
fact,
we
Peter,
can't fight something if we don't understand what it is and how it's developing here in the United States.
I actually have an event calendar for the league that I think would be helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
And our focus is strategic. Groups on the ground like Lauren's network are so crucial. But how do we pull ourselves together? how do we get the power we need to actually make this happen, to make what we need be the job of the government, not something they push away.
Excellent.
So
It multiplies. I mean, I really
Yeah.
admire, as I say, the folks that I've been connected with, People's Response Network, because they do have a way of really this idea of, that old style kind of retail, so to speak, grassroots thing of
Yeah.
getting in
Hey.
people's faces and asking them to also have these conversations with the people that they're connected with.
You know what? And I think
Fantastic.
that's fine. You know who brought me to the People's Response was Paul. I was at a rally protesting, what was going on in CPS. And he's like, hey, I thought he was an anarchist. And I was like, but I took the flyer, and then, he was very polite, and I signed one of his petitions. And I've been wanting to connect with the People's Response. I've just been really busy. And so just having that one-on-one contact with Paul helped me be like, all right. And then he talked to Antonio in a way that was not looking down at him like a kid. Like he was actually having a conversation with him. And that was like, Paul's legit. He's legit. He's community. And that's what brought us to the network. And we're there. And we're going to go to every meeting, So I think that old school, look, man, I'm just saying, I'm a boomer. Old school ways of organizing are all right, man. I'm all about using social media and YouTube and Facebook, but human to human contact is crucial, right? Alan, how about you? What are your socials? Where can people find you?
Yeah, definitely check me out on Facebook, Alan Babiars Lira. I love connecting with other educators and union comrades and having those discussions, that about best practices in the classroom and all that kind of fun stuff, because I think we need each other, especially in the adjunct world. We need each other because we're the only ones who fight for ourselves. And my next big event, just in case anybody was interested, is October 18th. It's my birthday.
Happy birthday!
Thank you.
Birthday.
So cards, presents, welcome. Everything's welcome. I just don't want COVID. So you guys leave that at home. So.
I'm going to send you something, Alan. It's going to be dope. Right. Well, listen, I cannot thank you enough. This has been amazing. You are always welcome back on Radical Books and Politics. And I'm going to close out with a song of Comrade wrote called Libera Radicalmente, which means to liberate radically. And I think that's on point. We have to liberate people's way of thinking and really come together for what we need, what we demand, So thank you again. It's been an incredible pleasure, super energized to keep the fight going this week. Lauren, I will see you on Wednesday. Peter, I will see you on Thursdays, and I will see you on Fridays, Alan, whenever. At our event, right? Have a blessed day. Cannot thank you enough. You're always welcome back. Think of this as your second home. And if you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It is growing. If you want to come on, DM me. I'd be happy to have more speakers on here. As long as you're not a fascist or a racist or a sexist, all the isms, you're welcome on the show. Have a great day, everybody. Oh, we didn't do the closer. Do what you love to the max and fight for the people. See you guys.
All right.